Mike Reiner, Corby Davidson, and Danny Bayless are live with the Hard Line every weekday afternoon on The Ticket from 3 to 7. I'm John Fahey, and up next on the Top 10, I send you to the Normandy invasion as they talk to a man named Dr. John Michels.
The talk in our area is of Tony Romo, of what's happened, about Dak Prescott, about his injury, about his series of injuries, and we have someone we can call on, thankfully. John Michels was a first-round draft choice of Green Bay in 1996, a very good player out of USC. As a rookie, injuries to a starter put him right in the starting lineup for 9 games, and that Green Bay team went on to win a Super Bowl. He was all rookie that year in the National Football League. He had a very bright future ahead of him. And then he blew out his left knee, and then he blew out his right knee. And then he went back to medical school. And in 2008, received his medical degree from USC, and now works at Interventional Spine and Pain, specializing in work on the spine. Here he is in the Bob Steak and Chop House hotline. Good morning to John Michels.
Hey, good morning.
We really appreciate the time. Thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. I wish I was at Prestonwood with you guys today.
Well, may not be very far from you. Just tell all those people that are coming to see you with help for pain and major... I got to go play golf today. John, Mike and I are going to act as kind of totally uninformed people, which I think, Mike...
Oh, yeah.
Probably applies.
Spot on.
Yeah, spot on. First of all, L1 vertebrae, which Tony has fractured, a compression fracture. Where is that in the back?
So the lumbar spine, we typically have 5 lumbar vertebrae, numbered 1 through 5. It's right below the rib cage is where that L1 vertebral body is. And when we saw Cliff Averill come over the top of Tony Romo as he began to slide the other night, that compressive injury that he had, you saw his body flex forward. Our spines don't like to do that, and that's what leads to these compression fractures that Tony Romo suffered the other night.
So, John, in effect, to use a very, very popular medical term, that vertebrae got smooshed.
That is the technical term that we use in the medical field, is smushing of the vertebrae. Yes.
Let's talk about going forward. There are injuries in sports where the goal is to get you back on the field, and you get back on the field when it's 80 or 85%, things like that. Is this such an injury?
This is. It's a fracture, not unlike any other fracture. The difference is being at the spine, and there's some very sensitive things that are surrounding the spine. We have a lot of nerves in there. And that's the concern. You don't want this fracture to extend any further where bone fragments could go back into the spinal cord and lead to nerve damage or paralysis. So we want to let this injury heal, but Tony should be back between 6 to 10 weeks. We should see Tony back on the field and performing at 100%.
This is Dr. John Michels from Interventional Spine. That's twice I've called it Spain, Mike. Spine and Pain Management. John, is this the type of injury that the doctors and the doctors alone are going to have the final say on when Tony can step back out there?
Well, I mean, it's going to be between the doctors and Tony Romo, based on how he feels, how that injury is healing. Can he go out there and perform his duties as a starting quarterback in the National Football League and be able to protect himself from any further injury? Those are the questions that the doctors and Tony are going to have to answer together.
John, you're a professional athlete. You know very well the types of personalities and approaches professional athletes take at times. Can you trust them? Can you trust them to say, oh, no, I'm fine, and he really is fine?
Well, I mean, you saw Tony the other night with a broken bone in his back, now that we have that knowledge, asking to get put back into the game. You know, I played football with a guy named Brett Favre, who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he had this incredible 300-game starting streak in the National Football League, almost unheard of for a quarterback. But Brett got his job because someone else got injured and went down. Don Mikowski got hurt. Brett stepped in, and he never relinquished that starting position. So being a competitor at that level, you never want to let injury be an excuse for a guy, especially a guy like Dak Prescott, who's probably the MVP in the preseason in the National Football League, to get an opportunity to step in and potentially take your job. So as a competitor, Tony is going to try to get back on the field as soon as possible and maintain his job as starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
Hey, John, this injury had nothing to do with any of the other back injuries that Romo has suffered in the past. And at what point or what type of back injury would a doctor like yourself actually tell Romo, dude, you need to stop this? You are putting yourself and the rest of your life at serious risk. This injury has nothing to do with anything like that?
No, this is a totally different injury than he suffered in 2013 when he had the disc taken out, in 2014 where he broke 2 accessory bones in the spine. Totally different and unrelated. And in fact, when I go back and watch the film of Tony's injury, I think the fact that he has had back injuries in the past probably protected him from this being far more catastrophic, because what I tell my own patients who have had an injury, you've really got to work on your core muscle strength in order to protect your back from further injury. Tony Romo has clearly done that work, and I think it protected him from far worse injury.
Jason Garrett seems to be the only person. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, and I was going to say the type of injury where you want him to shut it down, where you say, look, this is potentially a career, would be something like Prince Fielder, to talk Texas sports, where all of a sudden now we are compromising the spinal cord, and if he has a more serious injury, he could potentially be paralyzed. And that's when you go, look, it's not worth the rest of your life. That's not what Tony Romo is facing at all.
Jason Garrett seems to be one of the only people around the Cowboys not ruling out Tony Romo for week 1 even. Is there any circumstance where an injury like this would allow you to put some sort of back brace on, some sort of protective device to allow him to play any sooner than, I guess, the early side of the 6 to 10 week diagnosis?
You know, having been a former pro football player and knowing how the politics of the game works, I would suspect that the reason Jason Garrett is putting that information out there is he does not want teams keying in on a rookie quarterback, Dak Prescott, for week 1. So he's trying to leave some element of doubt that perhaps Tony could come out and play. I think most medical experts would say the soonest we're going to see Tony Romo is in 6 weeks, and it could be as well as 8 to 10 weeks.
Does this injury contain any worries about Romo's long-term health?
Not at all. I've seen reports where people are calling him a China doll, and I hate seeing that. Tony Romo is a tough player. He's played with a punctured lung. He played with broken bones in his back before. Tony came back and performed in this preseason after having his collarbone fixed in surgery last year and played as well as anybody. Tony has a lot of football left to play in him, and he has a lot to prove still. Tony's not going to end his career until he's gotten the Super Bowl ring on his hand. So I would suspect Tony's going to come back from this injury. He's going to be prepared to be the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for the next several years. He's got some unproven work to finish in his NFL career.
You can check out the Normandy Invasion right here on The Ticket every weekday morning from 10 to noon. I'm John Fahey.